Okay, in today's class we'll talk about what is a project charter and what is a stakeholder register. Okay, so we are in the initiation. I told you that the project has got 4 process groups which are very important. So those process groups also I will let you know. I'll just put you on to the what are the process groups of projects. This we have seen this. Okay, now you have these process groups. One is initiating process group, planning process group, executing process group, monitoring and controlling process group, and closing process group. And these are the knowledge areas. So you have project integration management, scope management, time management, and finally you have the stakeholder management. So now what we have to do is, first we have to understand what and all we do in the initiating process group. The first thing you do in the initiating process group is called as develop project charter. Very, very important. See, any project actually begins with a project charter. So what is the project charter? Project charter is a document which will authorize you to start the project. So if you want to start any project, you must and should have a sign off on this particular project charter, and the project charter will also have who will be the project manager for that particular charter and for that particular project. So the initiating process group will begin with something called as developing the project charter. Now the question is, how will you develop the project charter? Of course, there is a template. If I show you the template, you will understand how to develop the project charter. But if you want to fill in the template, you should have some inputs. So what are those inputs? We need to understand. I will show you one small picture now. It's a diagrammatical notation. See, now develop project charter, what you can see here, it is called as a process. Develop project charter is called as a process or a processee, whatever you call. So every process will have input, will have tools and techniques, and will have output. So if you want to develop a project charter, you should have these inputs. So what are the inputs? You should have project statement of work, you should have business case, you should have agreements, you should have enterprise environmental factors, you should have organizational process assets. So we'll talk about all these things. Then you should use some tools and techniques like expert judgment, facilitation techniques. Then what your output you get, you're going to get an output called as a project charter. So if you want to get this project charter as an output, you should have these things ready. You should have project statement of work ready, you should have business case ready, you should have some agreements ready, etc. So now let me give you an example. See, you want to start one small construction project, maybe a construction of a flyover. So if you want to start this construction of a flyover project, basically you should have all the contracts ready with you. Maybe you would have given a tender in the newspaper and many people would have applied for that particular tender, and you would have finalized some people to actually execute the work. So those are called as agreements. Or you are developing a flyover project and you are outsourcing some portion of the flyover project to somebody else. Maybe the tarring on the flyover project, you plan to outsource it to somebody else. So you are having one kind of agreement with a third party. So that is also called as an agreement. So that means in order to develop a project charter, you should have project statement of work. What is that statement of work? The statement of work is nothing but what is that you are supposed to achieve. What is that project all about? See, in corporate terms, we call it as a POC. It is called as proof of concept. Any project begins with a POC. That means what is that I am going to achieve? It is called as a POC. So from the POC, we are going to develop a document called as a project charter. In that POC, there will be a business case. What is the meaning of business case means? It will tell why my company should do this project. See, every company will do a project for what? Basically to earn money. So they are going to invest some money and they are going to get some money out of the project. After completion of the project, they should be able to make some profit out of it. What we call it as a return on investment. So now a business case is a document which tells me how much margin I am going to get if I execute this project successfully. So one is the statement of work, second one is the business case, the third one is the agreement. Agreement is what kind of agreement you have with your vendors, what kind of agreement you have with third parties who are helping you to accomplish this particular project. Then you have enterprise environmental factors, which is very important. In what kind of political system you are working with. These are all enterprise environmental factors. For example, if you take Indian political system, if you want to do a project called metro, probably the political system will also have an influence on that particular project. So what kind of bureaucracy is there, what kind of government rules and regulations are there, that also has to be considered when doing a project. And finally, you have an organizational process asset. What we call it as a OPA. Organizational process asset means what kind of documents are there with you before. That means you would have done projects before. So all those project documents will be there with you. So you take that also as an input. For example, let's say that you are a company who has executed projects all over India. So you are a company based out of Calcutta. There you have executed flyover projects. After executing flyover projects, you will have huge documentation with you, your planning document, your budgeting document, everything will be there with you. Now you got an order in Bangalore. Now those documents what you have in Calcutta will be taken as an input because that will help you in developing a project charter. So all these documents are required, our inputs are required in order to develop this particular project charter. One is the statement of work, that talks about what kind of project you want to do. Second is business case. Why are you doing this particular project? What is that my company is going to achieve after doing this project? Agreements talks about contracts. What kind of contracts you have with government, third party contractors, etc. Enterprise environmental factors talks about the political system or your own organization structure, how it is. So that also plays an important role in developing project charter. And OPAs, organizational process assets, which are nothing but the old project records, which can be helpful for you to actually develop the current project charter. So now you take all these inputs and you do something called an expert judgment. Now expert judgment is nothing but a tool and technique. What is an expert judgment? So you are a project manager who has around 15 years experience in managing flyover projects. So you got one flyover project order in Bangalore. So you have all the documents with you, the inputs with you. So you know how to execute this project. So based upon that, you will make some expert judgment and develop the project charter. And you also have one more tool called facilitation technique. Facilitation technique is nothing but group discussion. So what you do, you bring in big people in that particular organization, like project manager, senior project manager, director, designer. You all sit in a group and you do brainstorming and discuss this particular project. And you have the inputs with you. You also talk to them what challenges you faced in the previous projects. So other people can give contributions of their experiences. Like this, you come out with some kind of a facilitation technique. Facilitation technique is nothing but sharing their experiences and ensuring that your current project goes smoothly. Putting all this together, you are going to develop one document, and that document is called as a project charter. So in the project charter document, we will sign off whether we are going to execute this project or whether we are not going to execute this project. So sometimes after doing expert judgment, we may come to a conclusion that there is no point in going ahead with this particular project. So rather we can drop it off, or we can say that we can go ahead with this particular project. So we can always go in that direction. So expert judgment talks about the judgmental aspect of whether you are going ahead or not going ahead about this particular project. I will show you one template which is nothing but a project charter template, and see what are the different aspects of that particular project charter. Okay, so now see this. Is this visible to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now you can see every template will have the purpose of the document. See, what is the purpose of the document? The project charter will serve you as an internal document that captures high level planning, information, scope and deliverables about the project. That is what I told you. Project scope will be there in the project charter. Then its purpose is to recognize the existence of the project and begin the planning process required to accomplish the project goals. That means once the project charter is created and signed off, you can start planning that particular project. Then it is not intended to be shared with the customer as a formal contract or legal document. Now this is very important. Project charter is only for your purpose. It is not for customer's purpose. You and customer will sign one contract that is called as a service level contract or a service level agreement. So that agreement is a standard agreement between you and the project manager. See now, in this project charter, you will have the title. You know what is title. Then you have project number, you have date and revision number. So revision number is nothing but, as you know, you will be working on such templates in your organization also. So something like I'll have a project charter version as 1.2. So this is my starting version of the project charter. If I make any changes to the project charter, I will make this version as 1.3. Now there are two things here in the version numbers or revision numbers. One is called a major version and 3 is called a minor version. If you make major changes to the project charter, you make the version as 2.0. If you want to make minor changes to the project charter, then you make the version as 1.3. So if there are minor changes, then you have to change the minor version. If there are major changes, then you have to change the major number or the major version. So that is one thing you have to understand. So this is called as version control and revision history. So you should have all the versions of your project charter. It started at 1.0 and it ended at 10.5. That means all the versions from 1.0 to 10.5, those versions should be there with you, because that will give you an idea how changes are happening, what changes came into picture. So it is always good that if you have all these documents, you can go back and see how changes happened in my project charter. So this concept is clear. What is version number or revision number? No doubt? Which one? You want to know revision number, right? Okay. See, you are beginning one project. That project will have a project charter. So I will call that project charter revision number as 1.0. That is my first version of the project charter. Now you will feed some details here. You will give some project goals, you will give some deliverables, you will give some scope definition, some points you will feed here. Everybody will agree to that. Tomorrow after a few days, what happens? Slightly the goals will change or slightly the deliverable will change. Major change in the deliverable, minor change in the deliverable. So now what you can do, you cannot make those changes here itself. So you have to create a new project charter and you have to make those changes in the deliverables, and immediately what you have to do, you have to call it as version 1.1. Understood, Panish?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Suppose if there are major changes, then what you do, you make it as version 2.0. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So minor changes will involve changing the minor number. Major changes will involve changing the major number. Now you started with 1.0. You went on developing project charter, and one day you will find that the project charter number is 6.6. So that means what, you started at 1.0, it ended at 6.6. That means what you started from what you are ending, you can find that you have series of project charters which will have multiple changes. Understood? That is called as versioning or version history. We call it as a version history. Understood this concept very clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's like this. First, computers came with 80286, then it became 80386, then it became 80486, then it became 80586. When they came to 80586, they call it as Pentium. Then in Pentium you have generation 1, generation 2, generation 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. They all started changing the history, version numbers. So what does it mean? Whenever there is an upgradation happening, they will immediately change the numbers. So what does it mean? That if I have Pentium version 6, it is far better than Pentium version 5. So when you look at the document, design document of Pentium version 5 and Pentium version 6, you can clearly see the difference. What is the difference between version 5 and version 6? Probably version 6 will have more speed than version 5, something like this. Same thing I am going to have in the project charter. It's a part of your quality documentation also. If you are following ISO process in your organization, every document will have a version number. So that means if there are any changes in the document, immediately they will change the version number of that particular document. Now the first section is a project goal. You are going to write the goal of the project. What is the goal of the project? Describe the business need, opportunity or a problem the project was undertaken to address. Why are you doing this particular project? The business goal. For example, you are constructing a flyover. So you got this project. Now you have to write down the scope of that particular project or a goal of that particular project. We call it as a business need. And why it is a business need? It's a business need because your company is into flyover, construction of flyovers. So you have to write that we got this project which will satisfy our business need, therefore we are executing this particular project. Now you cannot as a construction project, now you cannot as a construction company, you cannot take a project to design a microprocessor because you don't have that competency within you. So that is not your business need or that is not your project justification. So your company is into construction, in that construction only your company is into flyover construction. So you got a project called flyover construction, so you can happily take and execute that particular project because that project basically lies under your jurisdiction. It will help you to execute that particular project. But if they ask you to develop an Android application, that may not be under your purview. So that is called as a business need. Opportunity at a problem that the project was undertaken and the project justification. And justification also is important. That means you should ensure that your project will basically give you return on investment. That is why I told you to do this thing, project charter, I told you that you require a business case, project statement of work and a business case. What is that business case? Business case talks about return on investment. Whether you will be able to successfully develop the project and make revenue out of it. Can you get profit out of it? That is very important. Okay, next you have deliverables. So what is deliverables? Provide a high level list of what needs to be done in order to reach the goals of the project. Each deliverable should be sufficiently detailed so that the project team will understand what needs to be accomplished. Describe the deliverable using action verbs such as deliver, provide, create, research, etc. Deliverable should be measurable so that the project sponsor and team can determine whether the deliverable has been successfully completed at the project's conclusion. So deliverables are nothing but what you want to achieve at the end of the project. So you should always start this with these words. What needs to be done in order to reach the goals, and you should also use words like deliver, provide, create, research, etc. See, for example, let me give you an example. So you can say provide connectivity by constructing flyover from Hebbal to Mekri Circle. This is one. So this is one way of writing your deliverable. So what you are writing here, provide connectivity by constructing a flyover from Hebbal to Mekri Circle. This is one. Then what else you can use? You can use deliver, and you can use create. For that, what you can do? So you can create structures which can handle high, low and medium traffic in various times during entire day and night. See, this is how you do it. So you should know how much traffic passes and how to create it. Then finally you can use say research. For that you can do some small research. Say research how much time a customer can save for commuting from Hebbal to Mekri Circle if he uses the flyover rather than using the conventional road. So these are your deliverables of your project. Panish, understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay, like this, I am just giving you an example. Like this, you can start creating your deliverables. Now understand here, if you can remember my previous class, see, research how much time a customer can save for commuting from Hebbal to Mekri Circle if he uses the flyover rather than using the conventional road. This is I told you that a project is a temporary endeavor which creates a unique product, result or a service. Now research is nothing but a result here. So this is a small portion of the project only. There will be a team of people. That team of people will do the research, and this project can be called as researching the time taken by the customer to commute. If he has to commute from Hebbal to Mekri Circle using a flyover, how much time he will take. So that's a research study. For that research study, you have initiation, you have planning, you have execution, you have monitoring and controlling, and you have got closing. And similarly, now to do this particular flyover, what you do? Next you have to take the permission from the government. So that is one more project. What is that project? To get relevant permission from the government, like Pollution Control Board or like Road Authority of India, before actually starting the work. That is one more project. So that project also will have initiation, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling and closing. Then after that, what you have to do? You have to talk for vendors who can supply you steel. You have to talk for vendors who can supply you the other material equipment. That's that we call that project as a vendor empanelment. That is also a project. So like this particular project of constructing a flyover may have so many sub projects, and those sub projects will have initiation, will have planning, will have executing, will have monitoring and controlling, and will have closing. So all these deliverables I am discussing before I am starting the project, main project only, and that is why I am putting all these deliverables in a document called as a project charter. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Similarly, you have scope definition. So what is this scope definition? Scope definition basically means convert these deliverables into scope. So what we write in scope definition is, we generally include one very important thing, which is very important, which includes Out of the scope responsibilities are the other areas that are not part of the project. So we are going to write what is not inside the project. What is not inside the project, Andre? I'll give you one example. See, you are constructing a flyover. When you are constructing a flyover, you may have to have street lights. For that street lights, you may have to have LED lamps. Okay, that is the part of the project. But what is not part of the project means maybe you are not including a solar lighting system into this particular project. That means if the lights have to be lit up during evening, that electricity has to come from Power Transmission Corporation of India only, or KPTCL. But you are not providing an alternate arrangement of having solar power to drive the LEDs of that particular lamp post which are fixed on the flyover. So that is not the part of this particular project. So scope will basically tell you what is that you are doing and what is that you are not doing also. See, generally a good project charter will tell what is included in the project and what is excluded from the project. Putting exclusion clause will give lot of clarity. Otherwise what happens, you will not know whether it has to be included or not. So exclusion clause will give you lot of clarity. So see, then you have project milestones. What is project milestones? Project milestones talks about, let's say that the design of the flyover should be completed before one date. Then acquiring of land and getting the relevant relevant permission from the government should be completed by one date. Finalizing the vendors should be completed by one date. Then starting of work should start on a particular date. Erection of pillars should be completed by one date. So this is called as milestones. Understood? You are understanding what are the milestones of the project? Milestones are nothing but deadlines. What deadlines you are going to put on that particular project. For example, including invoicing dates. When are you planning to give invoices to the client? Payment terms. For example, you will say my first payment term to the customer will be on this date after completion of this task. Next payment term will be on after completion of this task. Like this you can identify the project milestones or the payment terms of that particular project. Then you have assumptions, constraints and dependencies. So constraints are nothing but some negative aspects of your project. What could be the constraints? Let us see some examples. Identify the assumptions that were made to form the basis of defining the scope. So means assumptions are, let's say that generally government of Karnataka will take 15 to 20 days to clear your project scope, or they will take 15 to 20 days to give you the permission. And let's say that the KPTCL will take around 3 months to give you permission for erecting the poles. These are assumptions. How did I get these assumptions? Because I have done these projects before. In that project they took 3 months. 3-4 projects I did. In all the 3-4 projects I came to understand that generally they take 3-4 months to actually make and give this contract to me. So that is why I told you, you have organizational process asset as an input to preparing the project charter, which means earlier projects I take and I get some input from them, and I assume that this project also will go on the same lines. So that is nothing but assumptions, constraints and dependencies. What are dependencies? What is depending on other? For example, let's say that unless and until you take the KEB clearance, environmental board will not give you the clearance. So that is the dependency. Or unless and until you take the legal clearance, KPTCL will not give you the clearance. That is the dependency. So that means there could be some dependencies in your project. That means you should start the process 2 only after completing the process 1. Unless and until you have captured the land or you have grabbed the land, you will not be able to erect the pillars. So if you want to erect the pillars, land grabbing has to be done and all the documents has to be cleared, and that area where you are going to put the pillar should be now taken as the area of the government, which means it is used only for public transport. So that clearance has to be there, then only you can erect the pillars. So without that clearance you cannot erect the pillars. So that is called as a dependency. So that means one is depending upon the another. So those things you have to basically document that in the project charter. Understood, Panish, what is dependency?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Next, other related documents. If there are other related documents, if you have anything, you can put it here. So what are the other related documents? Like I told you this, it could be agreements, it could be organizational process asset, your previous project. See, I told you in every project you are going to do something called as lessons learned. Let's take an example. You did one flyover project in Telangana last year, and you faced lot of problems in doing that particular project. So you documented all the problems faced when executing this project. Now that is a lessons learned for you. So you take that lessons learned document as an input to this particular project, and you discuss that in the project meeting. With whom? With experts. Expert judgment, and ask them, look, in Telangana we executed this project and these are the problems we faced there, and I don't want to repeat that problems here. So what can we do? So experts will start giving their judgment. That is why we use expert judgment as a tool and technique for producing the project charter. Now you understood what is the meaning of expert judgment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so these are the related documents. Then you can write, identify the stakeholders and team members by function. So you can identify some team members. For example, let's say that a project manager for this project would be Panish. So organizational structure andre, what is the meaning of organizational structure? It will talk about some functions, name and role. So for example, for this project, we'll say project manager is Panish. Then we say you have a program manager. Who will be the program manager for this particular project? So I told you that a project is a collection of, a program is a collection of projects. I told you in the first class. So there are multiple projects here. One project was to get the clearance. One project was to get the contract from the government. One project was to get the clearance from various authorities. Like this small projects are there. For all these projects there will be one project manager, and all these project manager will work in a program. So now you can call this as a program to develop a flyover, which will involve multiple projects, and for each project there could be a project manager, and for every project project manager will report to a program manager. So that organizational structure I can basically write in this project charter, which is very important. Then finally you will sign off, who approved it and what is the date of approval. So all these things will be under this document called as project charter document. You can see initiating process group. What is it called? Develop
Project charter.
project charter. In the initiating process group there is one more process which is called identify stakeholders. Now what is the meaning of integration, you tell me? Generally what is the meaning of integration? What do you mean by integration?
Clubbing the two modules.
Yes. Now in order to develop a project charter, what and all you require? Project statement of work, business case, agreements, enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets. Correct, no?
Yes, sir.
So you have to take the input from all these things, integrate it andre, you have to combine all this knowledge, and then only you have to perform something called as a project charter. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So that is why it comes under this project integration management knowledge area. This we will stop here. In the next class I will show you, it's a very interesting, I will make you to do only next class. We will call it as identify stakeholders.
Okay.
Then after identification of stakeholders, our initiation process group will be complete. Then we shall go ahead with the other process groups.